Well, a pleasant good morning, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach talking ball on the Ballfather podcast presented by Sports Kita. I'm Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL PR executive, and I'm joined by my co-host who really obviously needs no introduction. He's Mike Smith, winningest head coach in Falcons history. Hey, Mike. Good morning. How we doing, man?
Hey, good morning, Reg. Hey, another great week of NFL football, huh?
You know what? I'm thinking, it can't get any better than 2 weeks ago, and then I'm thinking it can't get any better than last week, and then Saturday shows up, and I'm running around, and I was out, get that last minute Christmas shopping, and my girl's birthday, which is kind of runs close to Christmas, and so we come in the house, and the Vikings are down 33 points. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then we're just kind of, I'm putting some things together and I'm doing something, and I look up and then it's 33-21 or whatever it was. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to come back. And then that's a great game. And then you watch the Bills game. I mean, I'm telling you now, these last 3 weeks are going to be incredible. People jockeying for position. I mean, this is what makes our game the best game in America. It just makes our game the best game ever. What do you think?
What do I think? What was it? 11 one-score games this week? 11 one-score games. Yeah. I tell you, the NFL office, they love that, man. They are got to be so happy. The advertisers got to be happy. Everybody's happy, except some of the fans that were on the losing side of the games this week. But it was unbelievable.
Well, Pete Rozelle, who I got to meet when I was the league office to talk about parity, and he said the lifeblood of the league will be, every year your team's got a chance to win it. But coming down to the last 3 weeks of the season, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. There's not very many teams have been eliminated, and a lot of teams like the Detroit Lions. Look how well they're playing. A couple of weeks ago you'd think, okay, they're not going to make it, but there's just so much great stuff going on, and a lot of scoring, a lot of defensive plays, and some stuff that's not so good. We'll cover during our podcast. But I tell you what, I was thrilled to watch the game this weekend, and it's all set up and shaping up for another great week. But let's start with a couple of things. You want to talk about teams who clinched. Obviously, in the AFC, Kansas City, they've won their division. They're 11-3. They've clinched home field for the throughout the playoffs. Buffalo's 11-3. They're in the playoffs. The Eagles 13-1. They're playing really good, but they've got a little road bump, a speed bump with Jalen Hurts having a little sprained shoulder. Cowboys, stuck it up in Jacksonville over the weekend, so that's something we need to talk about. The Vikings with their huge win, not only did they clinch the division, they're also they clinched their division. And San Francisco, who are playing with their third quarterback this season, they're 10-4. They're in the playoffs, and they clinched the NFC West. So a lot going on, but I think the biggest thing is the Vikings and their comeback. Mike, were you watching that game? What are your early observations of that game? And I'll tell you mine. What were your observations from that game?
Well, it was. I was watching it, and it was heartbreaking if you were a Indianapolis fan there in the second half, Reg. They blew the biggest lead in the history of the NFL. Hey, I believe this, watching it, and this is, looking in the rearview mirror, they could have lined up with a 33-point lead, ran the clock down to 2 seconds on every snap in the second half, and they probably would have won that football game. It was, hey, take the air out of it. And I think they were doing that a little bit, but, it was a crazy game. The quarterbacking there with the Vikings, he threw the interception for a touchdown in the first half, and the other score that wasn't on the defense was the blocked punt. So it wasn't really as bad as it seemed because of those two plays. I just don't know. I don't get it, man.
I got a couple things. One of the things that you and I used to talk about when we worked together in Atlanta was experience, and experience matters. And I got nothing against Jeff Saturday. everybody from everybody I know at ESPN, guys who worked at the Colts, they like him. They say he's a nice guy, he's a good guy, he's a team guy. But I think that if I think experience matters, especially when you're the guy that's wearing the headset and you're the face of the franchise like you were for the Falcons. It matters. And I think, for them to be, I saw some things that I didn't like from a coaching perspective when they could have, they were throwing the ball and they could have run it, could have run more time off the clock. And I think experience matters. I think the fact that that they lost the game clearly showed that he might be just a little bit overmatched as the head coach for that team. I just think he was. I think that if John Fox was coaching that team, or what's the other guy who's got the experience head coach? I don't know the other assistant on that. Another assistant who's been a head coach. I think that could have made the difference in that. I think it could have made the difference.
Well, absolutely. It was a game that there was no way if you sat there and watched that ball game that you thought the Colts were going to lose the football game. There's no way that they can do it. And then the Vikings offense, they struggled in the first half. Kirk Cousins got going, and then it started to go. But I remember, with Mike Mularkey, we tried to take the air out of the ball if we got up, 17 points. It was, okay, stay in the huddle, Matt. We're going to make sure that we're going to run as much clock off as we possibly can. Might be boring for the fans, when they slowed the game down a little bit, but we're judged by wins, and you just got to get it any way that you can. And it was an unbelievable game. They'll be talking about that one like the miracle in Nashville, the Oilers game where they came back. It's just unbelievable.
Well,
you'll remember that one for a long time.
You look at it with regards to the fans. Even if you take the air out of the ball, you take the air out of the ball, and you walk to your car winning. You'll be happier driving home with a win than you will be with an L. But here's the other part that's coming up. Even though the Vikings are 11-3 and they've won their division, their last three, that ain't no duck walk. There ain't no duck walk by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they got to go to that ice box that's known as the Souls Revealed. It's always a tough place to play with that wind swirling off Lake Michigan. They got to go to frigid Lambeau Field. The Packers are playing a little bit better by their win last night. I mean, and then they got this weekend. I forget who they got this weekend. I forget who they have this weekend. They get the Giants. They got a home game against the Giants, that's not easy either. So, the next three will kind of tell us a little bit about what's going on with the Vikings to see if they can. They could. I don't think they could finish with any three tougher opponents than those three teams. Even though the Bears are 3-11 and the Packers are 6-8, the division games, and those are always tough.
Oh, they are. And I'm not worried about their offense. The Vikings offense, I think they're hitting on all cylinders. They've really struggled on defense all season long, and that's going to be the thing that they're going to have to do in the playoffs. And I can't, it seems like every week, not just coming back from, an historic lead, they've come back so many times this year. Kirk Cousins and the offense has pulled it out, and the defense has given up a whole bunch, and then finally made a play here and there, and their special teams has done it. It's a funny team, the Minnesota Vikings this year. They're not, they're not as good as their record, in my opinion. I know everybody says you are what your record is, but as a team that's in the playoffs with 3 weeks to go, I don't know that they're scaring a whole bunch of people with their defense.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think you might be right. Well, let's move on to the third and final game of the weekend. Obviously, the other game was the Browns took down basically a handicap Ravens team that's playing without Lamar. They won 13-3. The Ravens. There's been a lot of talk about John Harbaugh, and he's got to switch out the coordinator and do this. It's hard to play when your starting quarterback's not playing. I mean, they're a different team when Lamar's playing. They just are. They look out of sync. They look completely out of rhythm, and they scored 3 points the whole game. So, I'm not really worried about that. But I tell you what, those Bills, everybody. I did something the other day for a friend of mine who does a radio show in Tampa, and I came on with him to talk about Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a big time quarterback. I think. I think he's made some mistakes and he's lost some games. He's thrown the ball. He sometimes throws the ball to the other team, and all quarterbacks do that. But Mike, is there anybody in football that's got a bigger arm than him? I mean, seriously, is there anybody throwing the ball in that frigid temperature the way he threw it, where he threw it in the first half of that game on Saturday night? I mean, he's got as big arm as anybody in football, I think.
Absolutely. He may have as big as arm as anybody in the history of the game. You know, he can make all the throws, and he can throw the ball down the field. And I think the thing that he has shown is he has spurts in games where he kind of goes off the rails.
Right, and he does.
Yep, but he's able to get it back. And that's the thing that you have to do. You're going to have some bad throws. You're going to have some bad decisions as a quarterback in the NFL. But he's been able to overcome, those bad spurts. I think in the game last week, they had that drive there in the fourth quarter, 5-6 minutes, and basically kept, they just played keep away. Right. And, he methodically took them down the field. But there were times in every game this year almost that I've watched him play that they've been head-scratching throws, they've been head-scratching decisions. But I tell you, I think quarterbacks got to have that gunslinger mentality. He reminds me a lot of Dan Marino, some in the way that he plays the game. Dan might have a game where he goes and misses 5 in a row, but then he throws, puts 3 right on the money, and they're all 3 touchdowns.
Well, I think that's, we're just talking about taking the air out of the ball. I mean, we're talking about that fourth quarter drive that set up that game-winning field goal. I mean, they chewed 5:56. They chewed darn near 6 minutes off the clock, to get to the game, to get to the fourth quarter. And, you look at it, the guy threw for 304 yards, 4 TDs, had a QB rating of 119.2, which is fantastic. But he's got 14 picks. Like you said, he has spurts where he throws to them, and that's concerning. But I tell you what, now when it mattered, they got the job done. They've made the playoffs now 4 straight times, 5 times in 6 years that Coach McDermott's been there. I like them. I don't know if I like them more than I like the Chiefs, but I like them. I like them. I like them a lot, and I like them a lot. One, because of how they're playing on offense, because I like that. We can kind of keep him in the box and keep him in the game. I think they got a chance to make some noise in the playoffs once the playoffs start. Oh,
there's definitely going to be a presence in the playoffs. He's built to play in bad weather. And, if they have some bad weather games, he's going to be able to do it. And the thing that amazes me about this big guy is the way that he throws his body around when he takes off and runs. I mean, Sean's got to be cringing every time he sees him takes off. I mean, he'll go flying through the air, and I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, he's not a little guy that's jumping and hurdling people. He's trying to run, he's trying to run over him, run around him, run through him.
Let me ask you this question. If you were coaching him and, I'd walk by your office, sometimes you'd have the door closed, you'd have guys that are talking to him. What would you say to him? I mean, he's 6'5", played at Wyoming. I mean, he is a big dude. He really is. He's a big dude. What would you say to him, Mike? I mean, he runs the ball. That's part of his game. Why would you coach that? What would you say to him?
I'd say in the first quarter, get down. In the fourth quarter, if we're up by 2 touchdowns, get down. But if the game's close, go ahead and go, because you can't rein him totally in, but you got to try to educate him on when's the right time. Because I tell you, when he takes off and runs, they're trying to get him. And as in the NFL, those are the opportunities to get the head off the guy. They want to cut the head off when they talk about getting the quarterback out of the game, especially a guy like him there in Buffalo. Right. Josh he's the good one, but you can't just totally take him out of his game, but you got to try to educate him. It's the wins. When I say when you do that, not the wins of the games, the wins and losses. It's when do you do that? Do you do it in the first quarter? Do you do it when you're down by or up by 17? No, you don't do that.
Right. Sometimes you got to save
it. He's competitive. Yeah, and Reg, you don't want to take the competition away from him.
Right.
You don't want that competitive drive.
Right.
But you do want him healthy. You want the quarterback healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, which is an issue down in the city of brotherly love. We'll talk about that a little bit later because that
absolutely it is.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just switching. You're on the PR man, the Coach Talking Ball on the Ballfather podcast, presented by Sportskeeda. The Bengals go into Tampa. Their rally. They rally from 17 down and to take out Tom Brady and the Bucs to continue to, be in the funk that they're. I mean, they're up 17-3. And then there was all that mess about early in the week about. The Bengals have a fairly tough defense. I used to tell guys when I ran the PR department both in Atlanta and in Tampa, let's not do two things. Let's not say anything that's going to get on the coach's radar, and let's not say anything that's going to get on the other team's radar. I think that's very important. I don't know how much that plays in the game, but obviously the Bengals made a big deal of it. And they came back and they picked off Brady 3 times and they forced 3 turnovers. But I'm really beginning to be concerned about what's going on in Tampa. I've been concerned all year, but I'm now concerned. They're 6-8. You got 2 teams that are 5-9. I mean, Mike, who wins that division? I mean, seriously.
We've been talking. We've been talking about this one a lot.
We do.
They're terrible. Yeah, I know, and I know. Hey, it's because the Saints are in that division, Reg. I get it, but I mean, you don't.
They did win.
Oh, they did win. There's no doubt about it. They got them a W this week, and they're still not out of it. But nobody's out of it in the NFC South. But it's been a tough year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it started at the end of the season last year, and it's just been one thing after another. People now are saying things, what I think are crazy things is, but do we have the right head coach? And Todd Bowles is a heck of a football coach. There's no doubt about it. And but you give up 34 unanswered points, and I get it. It's the Bengals. They're a very, very good football team. Yeah, but it came because of the Bucs turnovers. That's really what happened. Tom Brady did not have one of his better games. It was probably in the lower 10 percentile of games. He turns the ball over, and that was the difference. I think there were 4 consecutive series where they turned it over. And I don't care who you're playing. If it's the number 1 team in the league or it's the 32nd team in the league, you're not going to win when that happens. But they really struggled on defense again against the Bengals, and the Bengals are good now. We're going to be talking about them in the second season. There's no doubt about it. And right now, they're playing as well as anybody.
They really are. It's funny to me that the greatest quarterback, arguably the greatest quarterback who ever played the game, he plays bad, and all of a sudden it's the head coach's fault. I mean, you got to look at it. You got to look at the whole thing. The whole thing. Organizationally, you have to look at the whole thing. The fact that they're 6-8, Scott. I know Todd's the head coach, and he and you and I talked about this a lot. Head coach gets probably all the blame, way more blame than he should get. But that's kind of the way the league is set up. But like you said, they turned the ball over 4 straight times. Brady's thrown it to the wrong guy. He hadn't been in sync with the offense. Special teams has not been great. And then the other thing defensively, they are struggling. I'm just wondering this, Mike, at this late point in the season, let's say they do win. Let's say they win, 2 of the next 2. I mean, they got, the Bucs have 3. They've got over the next 3 weeks, they've got road games against Arizona and Atlanta, sandwiched between a home game against Carolina. I mean, you probably should win 2 or 3 of those games. And 2, I'm thinking the way they're playing, 2 wins out of the next 3 would probably win the division for you, I would guess. But anybody thinking they're going to make any noise in the playoffs, I think is kind of deluding themselves. I think if they get that far.
Yeah, it's it's been a rough season. I do believe that they got the best shot at winning the NFC South. There's no doubt about that, Reg. I think they're gonna probably end up being in the playoffs, but they do not look like a playoff team. They haven't looked that way all season long. And the thing that I was surprised is that not the interception, but the 2 fumbles. I mean, Brady 2 times, ball security is so important at the quarterback position, and he's got a great feel for that in the pocket, and they turn the ball over, and that defense is not playing well, and especially in the secondary right now. It's not a good look, but guess what? It's the prettiest girl in the dance right now, and it's an ugly dance, man.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's you know what it is? It's 20 miles of bad Texas highways, but it looks like it ain't good. It ain't good at all.
Yeah.
Well,
but they're gonna get there. I think they'll be the NFC South champs.
I think you're right. Coach, let's talk a little bit about what went down in Jacksonville over the weekend. Now, let's just be real about it. Jacksonville's playing better. I mean, you knew they would. Coach Peterson is a quarterback whisperer. He knows offense. Just a matter of time before he got them going. They've won 2 of the last 3. And the quarterback, to me, seemingly is getting better and looks better each week. He's looking better each week. The Cowboys, I'm not really sure what I think. I mean, I'm thinking sometimes you go out there and you see them and they play really, really great. And then, then they have games like this, like they had on Sunday, where they just couldn't, have the play to knock the Jags out. The quarterback's throwing the ball to the wrong team. The running back's not playing as well. Defensively, they had some issues, and I know they got some injuries. And then, looking at that schedule, this is the second one. This is the second time they've got a brutal stretch over the next 12 days, where they play 3 games in 12 days. What's your thoughts on how they played over the weekend against Jacksonville in that schedule, Mike? How do you manage that as a head coach?
Well, you got to try to put the way that they've played really the last 2 weeks. They didn't play well against the Texans either. That was ugly. But and they are a very good football team. I don't know why they haven't played well the last 2 weeks, but maybe it's a hangover after Thanksgiving. I don't know, but it's something that I think warrants a discussion. I mean, like you mentioned, they haven't played well, but they've got a very good defense. I mean, that defense, they can hurt you in so many different ways. They can rush the passer. They've got good linebackers, and they're good in the secondary. So it's I still think they're one of the top teams in the NFL, even though they haven't shown it these last 2 weeks. And America's team, they get sometimes they get way too much credit, and then when things don't go right, they get way too much blame. And people are talking about it because they are America's team. And
right.
I know some people don't like to hear that, but they are I think the face of the NFL in terms of what franchises are. But I want to talk about those Jaguars. I mean, this has been a month of Trevor Lawrence's coming out party, in my opinion. It's been going on for 4 weeks. They beat the Ravens, and then they turn around and get blown out by the Lions, and everybody's going, the Lions? Well, the Lions are a pretty damn good team, but they got beat. Yep. And then they beat the Titans, and then they beat the Texans. I mean, when they beat those teams, they're all playoff teams. They lost to the Lions, but the Ravens were they're a playoff team. The Titans are a playoff team, and the Cowboys are a playoff team. That's a second-year quarterback. And you mentioned it, Doug Peterson's done a great job. We talked about it last week. He and his staff, and they've done amazing things, because it was not a pretty sight, and after the Urban Meyer experiment, having to come in and put all this stuff back together, they're a year away, like I said, I think last week, but they're going to be good. I'm on the arrows going up with the Jaguars, and I still think it's going up for the Cowboys. They're going to be, they're going to be fine. They're going to be in the playoffs, as we all know. And that's all you want to do is get there, because their roster from top to bottom on offense and defense is as good as any in the National Football League on paper.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I agree with that. I think the defensively they're as good as anybody in football. They've got good linebackers. They've got really good skill guys in the back. But as a coach, managing that these next 12 days with that, they play the Eagles Christmas Eve, then you got to go to Tennessee, play them, or you play Tennessee at home. Then you go face a Commanders team that's fighting for its life, its playoff life, and battling for a playoff spot. It's not a whole lot of practice time, Mike, involved in those 12 days. How does a coach go through that and sort of keep your edge, but not get anybody more nicked up than they already are?
Oh, at this point in time, Reg, in the season, and you've got to make sure you're taking care of your guys. And the Cowboys started it probably Thanksgiving week. They play on Thanksgiving, so they play on a short week. So they're used to it. All the guys that have been on the squad, and you just got to make sure that mentally they're prepared and they're ready to go. At this point in time, the physicality of practices goes way down, and you're just wanting to make sure that they understand what the game plan is, and let's go out and play, let's go out and execute it. We're so far into the season, they're probably having more walkthroughs than they're having actual practices, and that's the way you got to do it in a 17-game season. And knowing that you're going to make a deep run into the playoffs, you better want to make sure that you keep those guys healthy. And I know that Coach McCarthy Mike will do a good job of making sure that they are tuned up and ready to go, because they're in the playoffs. They've already secured that, but they want to get some home field games, I'm sure. Play the Big D instead of going on the road.
That'd be tough.
Yeah.
You know what? Switching gears, we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks with regards to the Lions, how the league is better. I tell you what, Coach Campbell's got to be getting some consideration for Coach of the Year based on what he's done. I mean, if anybody says that they didn't think they were dead after the 1-6 start with the defense giving up a whole bunch of points, a whole bunch of yards, and the quarterback not playing well, I mean, what they've done, over the last couple of 2 months of the season has been pretty impressive. They've won 3 straight, 6 of their last 7. And they took down a really good Jets team that a couple of weeks ago was sort of cruising, looking like they were going to just sort of kind of coast to the playoffs. And all of a sudden, they're 7-7 with 3 to play. Now, the way they got to get in is tough. I mean, they close out the season with a road game at Carolina. They're home against Chicago. They should be favored in that game. And then they got a road game at Green Bay. That's always hard. Like I said, division games are hard. But I'm thinking the way they play and how, as well as the quarterback's playing right now, and he's played as good a football as he's played. I mean, he looks like the quarterback that took the Rams to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on the Lions, and do you like their chances, Mike, based on their final 3?
Well, their schedule is good. There's no doubt about it. I mean, yes, they're 2 division games. You never know what's going to happen when you're playing within the division. But you're right. They after 5 games, I mean, they were put out to the pasture and said, "Hey, it's another Lions season," and that's not been the case. The offense has done an unbelievable job led by Jared Goff, and they're not as on defense, but they're able to keep them in the games when they've had to, and good chance that the Detroit Lions, and I hate to say this because you don't say it very often, but the Detroit Lions, they're a relevant team with 3 weeks to go in the season, and that's all you can ask for, because this season is going to go down to the wire. Even though I think right now there's 2 in the AFC and 4 in the NFC that have clinched, spots. There's still a lot to play for a lot of teams. There's not a whole bunch of teams that have been eliminated and have that that mark on them that they're not going to to play in the second season. Right.
Well, the interesting thing about the Lions, I think, is you read a lot of something. Rex Ryan was on ESPN yesterday talking about how nobody in the NFC would want to play this team because they're probably, for all intents and purposes, I think you could argue this point, but they may be the hottest team in the AFC right now, and one of the hottest teams in the league. The record, you look at the record, you say, okay, they're 7-7. But if you look at, I think you got to look at their overall body of work as to how they got there. I mean, that's kind of an impressive thing, because they could have folded the tent up after, as bad as the defense was playing. people were on Aaron Glenn. They fire a guy off the defensive staff early in the year. And then, it looked like it was going to be the same old lines. But I think Coach Campbell and his staff deserve a lot of credit for, sticking with their plan, and B, having those guys hang together to get to the point where they are. Matter of fact, Coach, I'll send it to you. ESPN wrote a really long profile about Daniel Campbell and some things I didn't know about. And, he's a guy that guys rally around, much like our guys did when you coached. He's a guy. He's a tough guy. I mean, he's a guy you'd probably want to play for.
Oh, absolutely. Dan Campbell's done a great job, and I would not be a bit surprised if he's, a finalist for Coach of the Year. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they were 1-4, I believe, Reg, when they started this season, and looked horrendous on the deep side of the ball.
It was
awful. But Aaron Glenn has done a great job getting the guys to continue to play and play hard. I don't know that they're the most talented defense in the National Football League, but they are doing it well with meshing well with the offense there in Detroit. And you got to say hats off to the coaching staff there in Detroit. Got to win with what you got.
We'll keep our eye on that one. I'm hoping that they get there and get to the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. Be the first time since 2016. So we're cheering for that. Let's switch gears to the teams with the best record in the league. Talking about the Eagles, who just kind of keep winning, but they had a tough one with the quarterback in the third quarter. I was that game was on, or I had the satellite on, and I was watching it. And the guy wasn't illegal. The guy kind of drove the guy to the ground after a 3-yard run. But, it sort of gets to what we talked about a little bit, Mike, with regards to the quarterback. And we're talking about Josh Allen. I mean, I looked it up. Jalen Hurts had 17 rushes in that game. In my opinion, I think that's too much for a quarterback. I think you're exposing him to get hit a lot. If you're going to expose him, if he's going to touch and going to run it 17 times, you're going to get to this point in the season now when you got one more game to clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs and get a bye week. I think when you do that, you've got the situation that we're now currently in. Now they're talking about Gardner Minshew's going to start. He may miss. Hurts may miss 2 weeks. So I guess this it's kind of pick your poison. You run that offense that he's really really good at, but it also includes a run element. And now you got your quarterback getting hit a lot. So what's the balance as a head coach? What's the balance?
It is a big balance, and you've got to go through it and really think hard about how many times you want your quarterback to hit. I mean, right now when you say 17 rushes, backs, unless it's a weather game, running backs aren't 20, more than 20 carries. You're not seeing guys getting at the running back position getting 25, 30 carries like you did 5-6 years ago. And now you're getting 17 carries, 15 carries on quarterback 17 times. Do the math. He's going to get hit. And the quarterbacks are going to be hit if they're going to run ball that many times. So, we all said we love the Eagles and what they were doing. But we got to keep the quarterback healthy, and that's a big but. And I think they probably dodged a bullet. They're saying that it's just a shoulder sprain. And was it a hard tackle? Well, hey, I promise you, those guys chasing Jalen Hurts, when they get a chance, they're going to give him a little extra. And you want to try to get him, out of the game.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
I think they're going to be, okay with Gardner Minshew. He started games in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's, they're in Jacksonville. He's, and he's played 4 games for the Phillies. So they're going to be able to, get out there and play. And, he played collegiately at Washington State for Mike Leach, who is one of the most innovative offensive coaches in football, and God rest his soul, Mike passed last week. He's gonna be missed, but he's well coached, and he knows what it takes, and they're going to put together a plan that's going to, make him be successful. He's not Jalen Hurts. He has a different skill set, but they get one win out of the last 3 games to keep that number one seed. And that's the important thing, right? That's the thing they've got to decide is let's get the number 1 seed and let's get it done. They've got Dallas, New Orleans, and the Giants left. And,
right.
Mike, we'll see. Hey.
Yeah. Let me ask you this from a coach and fan perspective. Let's say Minshew has to play the next 2 weeks, and they somehow win this week and get the 14-1. Would it be something that it might be a blessing in disguise, because if they get the 14, does Jalen even play the next 2 weeks? Just do the stars even play the next 2 weeks, or are you concerned about continuity going into the playoffs with the hurt shoulder? I mean, obviously you want your starter playing. I mean that's the obvious one. You want your starter playing. But does it give you concern that if whether however it shakes out, he misses the next 2 weeks, coming back from a continuity standpoint? Do you play him in that week? Play him the next week, just to sort of keep the momentum going, or what do you do there?
Reggie, that's one of the toughest things that a head coach has to decide, and he'll take in information from the trainer, he'll take information in from the GM and from the owner. You're going to take all that stuff in, and I don't think there's any real correct answer. You've got to go off your gut. There's not any statistics there. It's not analytics that are going to be part of that decision-making process. No, right. It's how do you feel in your heart and how do you feel in your head, right. As a coach. And I think for the most part, I think people tend to not play their players once they have secured a spot, and especially if that spot can't change. If it means you're in the playoffs but you got a home game in the first round, you're thinking, hey, I got to play my guy. But hey, if I've got that number 1 seed and I can rest some guys, you've got to think about it really, really hard, because I don't know that they're going to forget how to play, or that mojo's going to go away in a 1 week or 2 week period. And I think you see more times than not teams that have clinched, they will hold out players. It's just like it's almost like the last preseason game,
Right.
You got to say, okay, this guy, we can't afford to lose him. We've got to have him healthy instead of healthy for game 1. We got to have him healthy for this playoff push. And but I do think more and more now coaches are leaning on, once they've gotten in and they can't change their status on the playoffs, they're going to go ahead and play the backups. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, but this week they got Dallas. That's and if the Eagles beat Dallas with Minshew, then I'm gonna have to come back and say, something's not right with Dallas. Even though I just said 2 minutes or 10 minutes ago, I really like what Dallas is doing. Now that I'm a media guy, I can say whatever and change my mind, I guess.
Oh, change your mind. No problem. They do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely they do.
The PR man, the coach, talking ball on the Ballfather podcast, presented by Sports Keaton. Just to kind of finish up here, Coach. I mean, that'll be a good game. No fair watching the Eagles and the Cowboys. I kind of was thinking yesterday, two days ago, that before I knew that Hurts was hurt, that they were going to get they were kind of steamroll. They're going to get the bye and just kind of take the next 2 weeks off. But this is a little bit of concern, because you don't really know how. They're saying right now that it's whatever, grade 1, couple of games, but you don't really know. And then if he comes out and stinks it up and can't throw the ball, you'll obviously know it's a little bit more serious. But it's worth watching. It's worth watching because he's played as well as anybody in the league this far to get him to 13-1, and it'll be worth watching. He's played like an MVP thus far, and probably was the front runner. So it'll, will it change if he doesn't play or plays only one more game this season? I don't know. I mean, he's had a great season. Yeah, yes. Well, over the AFC, switching back to the AFC, the Chiefs, ho hum, they won the division. Think about that. They've won the division for 7 straight years. I mean, that's hard to do. I mean, Andy Reid's kind of got it to the point now where they got it on cruise control in that division, which sort of speaks a little bit to the division, how poor the division is. But consistency. He's been real consistent. He's got a really good quarterback. They're pretty good on defense. They're really good on special teams. They didn't play great. They had 2 turnovers in 102 yards for the penalties, which isn't good to win for the 7th time in 8 years. But they're playing good. I mean, it's kind of what the fact that they've won the division 7 straight times is no shock to you based on how good a coach Andy Reid is.
No, absolutely. Andy Reid will be a first ballot Hall of Fame coach. There's no doubt about it. What he did in Philadelphia, and then to back it up, what he's doing right now there with the Kansas City Chiefs, and doesn't surprise me at all. He's very innovative. The way that he coaches, guys love to play for him, and they've got it rolling. And this just isn't a 1, 2, 3 year deal. 7 years. I mean, 7 years straight. It's hard to do in the NFL when you're picking in the draft, in the bottom quarter at least, and probably in the top 5 or the bottom 5 every year. And they just reload, and he's very innovative on offense, and he gets the guys playing and having fun. And I think that says a lot to why they've had sustained success, because it's fun to play for Andy Reid and be on Andy Reid's team. Yeah.
Obviously, the way they're playing and how good they're going, the vibe they got going. Obviously, they'll be there, and they're going to be a team to watch. And obviously, everybody keeps saying it's probably going to be Kansas City and Buffalo to play for the right to go to the Super Bowl. So that'll be worth watching as well. Not gonna harp on the next point, but just to remind you, the Saints did win. Okay, they're 5-9, not mathematically out of it, but they're going. I tell you what, now, I think the guy in San Francisco, the new quarterback, Brock Purdy, is sort of you got to think one of 2 things. It's either Kyle Shanahan's offense, or they just kind of continue to, John Lynch and his personnel staff just continue to go out and find quarterbacks. That kid's pretty good. I mean, they beat not a very good opponent the other night, but he's got them playing, and he's the buzz of out there on the West Coast. And when I talked to one of the writers out there yesterday, said, Rich, it could be a problem because they really like this guy. They really like him.
Yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan just likes quarterbacks, man, and he makes it quarterback friendly, and he's done a great job putting together game plans, and I think Christian McCaffrey takes a whole lot of pressure off of the quarterback, and the way that his system is, he can beat you so many different ways. And when you're trying to stop one thing, then that opens up something else. You're playing quarterback, you got to love it, because you're going to be able to know pre-snap how they're trying to defend you. And they've done it. They've done a great job. But I don't think there's a quarterback that Kyle hasn't liked. I really believe that. I mean, he knows he can take them, and he can put together a game plan around their strengths and make sure that their weaknesses are kind of covered up, and win football games. Kyle's a very good football coach, and John Lynch has done a very good job in regards to putting together a roster and knowing what the head coach wants. I think they're in lockstep in terms of what they're doing on the personnel side of it.
Coach, let me ask you this. We're going to just go a couple of questions from the editor who sent me a couple of questions, just a couple of things that have to do. Some of them we've talked about, some other things. I don't really want to beat anybody while they're down. I mean, what the heck was going on in that Patriots game with that Lato situation? Did you see that?
Oh my gosh, Reg. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. I mean, what were they thinking?
What are they thinking?
I mean, yeah, no, I know that Bill Belichick did not call that play. No matter what they said I don't know what they said after the game in that locker room, but I guarantee you they were giving up. I mean, it was just a give up. We're going to run a draw, and I don't know, the guy must have lost his mind. hey, you're going into overtime. If you were trying to score, you would have thrown the ball deep,
Absolutely.
down the field, and then he laterals it to the running back, laterals it to Jacoby, who then tries to throw it back to Mac Jones. It gets intercepted. I mean, I've not seen anything, dude. The score was tied. Go to overtime. Right. I have no idea. I mean, the guy must have just mentally, they just must have blacked out. I don't know. And I wouldn't want to have been in that locker room afterwards.
No.
Ooh.
And deal with Belichick the rest of the week. And come on, I mean, the conversation you had with him either after the game or Monday morning. Oh, come on, man. I mean, who wants that? Nobody wants that.
Right. Yeah. And typical post-game interview. Why did the guys keep asking him? All he said was, and I'm quoting him, not exactly, but I think he said something like this: made a mistake on the play. Made a mistake on the play. Made a mistake on the play. 3 times they came after him. 3 times. Do you think he was going to change his answer? No. And we'll never, ever know what really happened on that situation. Not there in New England. Nobody will be talking about it.
No.
If they do, they won't be a New England Patriots.
Won't be there much longer. No, won't be there much longer.
And I feel for the Patriots because, that was, looking at their Final Four, that was one they said we got a W, because these next 3, they're not easy. They got Cincinnati at home, Miami at home, and Buffalo on the road.
That could be over. That could be over.
Yeah, that could be, absolutely. So, that was the one win that they probably, were putting on the win side before last week. And the Raiders, they were gifted. Yeah. That
was a tough one. We talked about the Vikings. We talked about Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes. We've talked about those 3 guys. Talked about Minshew and how he's played. The Steelers have been showing a little bit of life lately. I mean, you knew Mike Thomas is good at coaching. Has been in the NFL. The Steelers have struggled. The question is, do you see them qualifying for the playoffs? I'm not sure they got enough to do that. Not with what they got left and who's ahead of them, but I think that they are playing better.
They are playing better. There's no doubt about it. Mike Tomlin is very similar to Andy Reid. He's consistent. They have different makeups, but one thing that is true on both of them is that they're very, very consistent in how they run their teams. And it doesn't surprise me with the new quarterback that it's taken them a while, to transition from the Ben Roethlisberger's led offense, but they are starting to play good. This might be the first time that Mike doesn't have a winning season, but I think that it looks good for the future, and I wouldn't be counting the Steelers out next year, especially with kind of what's going on with some of the other teams in the AFC.
Mike, let's switch gears just a little bit. Got a couple more minutes to finish up here. Justin Jefferson, who's a great player. We talked about him all year on our podcast. I think he's just a few yards away from breaking Randy Moss's record set in 2003 for the most receiving yards in a season. He had 1632, 17 scores that season. Justin's at 1623 with 7 scores. But the one thing that I read that's a little bit disturbing, I'm just sort of curious of your take on it. Coach O'Connell this week was talking about guys targeting Justin Jefferson, guys hitting him late, throwing him to the ground, driving him to the ground. And he's made the officials aware of it during the meeting, the coaches meeting, the 90-minute meeting before the games. What was your take and your procedure when you felt that was going on with one of our guys or one of the guys you coached? When just to protect your guy, how did you approach that with the officials, and how did you handle it?
Well, just like Coach O'Connell is, if there's a concern, especially specifically about one player, you're going to bring that to their attention and let them know that it happened last week, or we're seeing it as a trend where guys are taking extra shots at the guy or late shots, and they want to get them off the field. There's no doubt about it. But there's there's no place in football for things to happen after the whistle. And I know that defenses are frustrated trying to cover this guy, but you've got to play the game inside the rules. And I think he is going to finish the season very, very strong, because they had a great game throwing the football last week against the Colts. Not only Jefferson, but the guy on the other side, he came to life, and that's gonna, you're gonna have to pick your poison going on. So
I tell you what, now it's with 3 games left. I mean, you can't. It's to the point now where you can't even go to the bathroom without putting your TV on pause, because if you come back, you'll miss something. With so much action and so many people vying for playoff spots. I mean, it's going to be worth watching. I mean, the last 3 weeks usually are always solid, but it just seems like this year there seems to be more at stake, and there seems to be people jockeying for position for playoffs. Teams like the Lions fighting their way in. Teams like the Redskins, the Commanders trying to fight their way in. Got some of the same similar scenarios over in the AFC. I think these next 3 weeks are going to be really, really interesting, and I think there are going to be some surprises. We got to watch what happens in Philadelphia with the Eagles. I think we got to watch to see if Josh Allen can continue to throw the ball to the right guys. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. It really is.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, these last 3 weeks, there's going to be a lot of heartache and a lot of joy. And that's the thing that happens at the end of the season. As we mentioned early on, there's only 2 spots in the AFC that have been secured, and 4 spots in the NFC. So there's still a lot to play for, and there's probably half the league vying for those last spots in the playoffs. There's no doubt.
Right. We'll check it all out, and we'll be analyzing and taking notes and making phone calls, see what some of the other analysts in the country think, and we'll be back to you next week on the PR Man, the Coach Talking Ball, and the Ballfather podcast. Coach, have a great week, man. And if I don't talk to you, Merry Christmas to you, Miss Julie and Miss Logan, man. Y'all have a great day next Sunday.
Yeah, back to you and back to everybody. All right, man. All right. We're all blessed.
Hey, man, you're right. You bet that. Have a good one, Coach. Take care, man.
Okay. All right.